Netanyahu is on a roll of just admitting day after day that his harshest critics from day one were 100% correct. So let me walk you through this here. The Times of Israel has the following as a headline. Netanyahu says he's on a historic and spiritual mission, feels a connection to a vision of greater Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tells I-24 he feels he is on a historic and spiritual mission, a mission from God, that he is very attached to the vision of greater Israel, which includes areas slated for a future Palestinian state and possibly also areas that are part of present-day Jordan and Egypt. So this is what we were warning you of. And I remember we said this super early on. It was maybe only a month into the genocide, and we started having the conversation about the Greater Israel Project. And at the time, if you said it, you would be smeared as an anti-Semite. You would be smeared as, a Nazi for pointing out that this is on the table and this is something that the Israeli government is considering. Well, now you have Netanyahu himself, the prime minister of Israel, the guy who's doing the genocide and the ethnic cleansing, coming out and saying, yeah, I'm on a spiritual mission to create a greater Israel. So understand what that means. That doesn't, some people might hear that and they might think, okay, well, that means they're trying to take the Gaza Strip and that means they're trying to take the West Bank. Well, I'm here to tell you, no, it is not just that. It's not just the Gaza Strip. It is not just the West Bank. When they talk about a Greater Israel Project, this is what the Greater Israel Project looks like. So you have parts of Saudi Arabia, parts of Iraq, parts of Syria, parts of Jordan, Lebanon, parts of Egypt. Like, that's all gone. Let's remember, Israel has been nonstop bombing Lebanon for an extended period of time now, and they've always gone back and forth with them pretty aggressively. We know that ever since Bashar al-Assad was toppled in Syria, now you have a former al-Qaeda leader who runs Syria. But what did Israel do? They bulldozed their way in, took large swaths of Syria beyond just the Golan Heights, which they had previously. They stole that previously. And they took large swaths almost all the way up to Damascus. And they repeatedly started bombing Syria. And even when Syria was trying to make overtures of like, hey, let's de-escalate, let's get along here, Israel said no, and they started whipping up propaganda about how, certain minority populations in Syria are being bombed by or being killed by the government that's there now. Now, by the way, they're not wrong about that. The government it's a former al-Qaeda guy, of course, is going to be absolutely fucking horrible. But the thing that's laughable is that you think Israel's concerned about civilian populations fucking anywhere? No, they're using this as an excuse to take more Syrian territory to try to create greater Israel. And that's where we are. And that's what we're witnessing. And they know that Iran, for example, is the main thing preventing them from total regional domination. And so that's one of the reasons why you saw the attack recently. And by the way, there's going to be another attack coming. We'll have a story on that tomorrow. But the idea that the Israel-Iran war is over, it's not even close to over. We are just getting started, dog. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, but this is the actual project. So again, when we brought it up, when we said this is on the table, this is what they're thinking, you had all these fucking idiots come out of the woodworks, all these Zionists who would say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. This is literally a defensive war. They're only going after Hamas. Well, please. And it is now day after day, we are learning the harshest critics from day one were correct. So also, when we brought up ethnic cleansing, oh, no, that's not what they're doing. Okay, well, now look at this. This just came out from the Associated Press. Israel is in talks to resettle Palestinians in South Sudan. The Associated Press reports that Israeli officials have held talks with South Sudan about moving Palestinians from Gaza to the East African state, a country still recovering from civil war and facing acute food shortages. Sources familiar with the discussion say Israel has approached other nations with similar proposals as part of Prime Minister Netanyahu's push for what he calls voluntary migration. It's not really voluntary, is it? If you're forcing them out, that's not really voluntary. That would be the opposite. That would be mandatory. So you have the genocide occurring, and then you have the ethnic cleansing piece. And remember, they were talking, a month ago, they were saying, oh, we're trying to make a deal with Libya to send people to Libya. And then a month before that, it was a different country. And by the way, this has echoes of, remember this? The Madagascar plan, which is what the Nazis wanted to do with the Jews. Before they were like, let's just exterminate them. They were like, well, we could just deport them all and send them to Madagascar. And so this is the Zionist Nazi regime doing the same thing vis-a-vis Palestinians. And they're trying to find places to send these Palestinians. So again, stop and think about it. We were told the Greater Israel Project is a Nazi conspiracy theory. Not remotely. This is what they said they wanted to do in the past. Now, what Netanyahu is saying he wants to do now, also adding that he's on a spiritual mission, which, by the way, anybody who's concerned about religious extremism and fanaticism, all the people who like to yelp and whine and moan and bitch about Muslims who are religious fundamentalists and extremists, where are you now? Where are you now when an illegal extremist Israeli settler says, God told me I can steal this Palestinian land in the West Bank? Are you going to criticize that person? Are you going to criticize Netanyahu for saying he's engaged in a spiritual battle to create a greater Israel? Obviously saying God is on my side and God wants me to create a greater Israel, which also is right in line with Christian Zionists like Mike Huckabee and their evangelical extremism, where they believe Israel needs to take all the land so the rapture can happen and Jesus can come back on a winged horse and kill a bunch of the Jews and convert other ones. This is what they actually believe. Tell me again about the religious psychopaths, the extremists, because there's a lot of them, and I see a lot of them on the Israeli side, and they're actually living it out. That's the thing. It's not just theoretical. Like, they're actually doing the shit that leads to the death and the destruction and the horrors, and they're doing it in the name of God. That's what they're doing. And so we were right. We'll wait for our apology forums from Zionist hacks who told us that the Greater Israel Project was bullshit and that how dare you bring that up, that's a conspiracy theory. We'll wait. You know, now you got Netanyahu admitting, yes, that's of course what we're doing. Will any of them turn around and say, oops, my bad, I was wrong? Not a single one of them will. Will any of them turn around and say, well, obviously it's ethnic cleansing. They're trying to send them to a country, a different country completely that they know nothing about. None of them will do it. And then, of course, the other point is, we talked about this the other day, Netanyahu's office came out and said, we're going to reoccupy all of Gaza. The decision has been made. We are going to reoccupy all of Gaza. Well, again, we were told, hey, this is defensive. This is to get back over October 7th. We're only going after Hamas. We're only targeting the bad guys. And now, what part of a defensive war where you only go after the bad guys, what part of that includes ethnically cleanse over 2 million people and steal the entire Gaza Strip and reoccupy it, resettle it? By definition, that is not defensive. That is offensive. And again, this is something, how early did we bring this up? How early was it when we said, I don't know, man, it looks like the ultimate goal is to resettle all of Gaza, to reoccupy all of Gaza, to either kill or ethnically cleanse the Palestinians so they could take the land. At the same time, by the way, it's not like this stopped in the West Bank. They're still doing it in the West Bank. It's just mission creep in the West Bank. Daily, there's terror attacks against Palestinians living in the West Bank where their farms get stolen and their houses get taken. We've seen that day in and day out. And so, again, we said they're going to reoccupy all of Gaza. Then again, Netanyahu's office comes out and says, yeah, that's what we're going to do. They were having conferences. It was like 2 months into the genocide, they were having these conferences selling the land in Gaza, which they did not own. Just casually discussing international war crimes, making sales of somebody else's land. And when we said that, again, we were called crazy. We were called anti-Semitic. We were called frothing at the mouth lunatics who are anti-Israel and can't see straight and are biased or whatever. Every single thing we said was right. Every single thing. So look, it's the international community has to have a moment here. They have to look in the mirror. They have to ask themselves, do we want to live in a world where it's law of the jungle, might makes right, or do we want the Nuremberg Tribunal and the Geneva Conventions and the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, do we want that to matter? Do we want that to matter? Because if we let Israel continue down this path, I hate to tell you, we are no better than the humans of the fucking 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. We're no better than the humans of the 1930s and 1940s with the Nazis and their atrocities in World War II. The whole idea after that was, hey, let's never do anything like that again. Let's have some rules of the road that the international community holds everybody accountable to. And now here we are, 2 years into those rules not being followed, being destroyed right in front of our faces, and everybody sitting around with their thumbs up their asses and acting like everything's okay. Everything's not okay. It is not okay. Not a single one of us is safe in a world where Israel gets away with what they've been getting away with. This country single-handedly destroyed the entire international law framework right in front of our fucking eyes. And don't let anybody gaslight you and pretend like that's not the case. Because we all know that's the case. We all see it with our own two eyes. And so, Unfortunately, the people who've been wrong every step of the way, or more specifically, lying every step of the way, they will not admit it, they will not tell you, and they'll just plow ahead arrogantly as if they weren't just disproven completely. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.